I sat alone at the bus stop in the industrial outskirts of Atlanta, the late October night wrapping around me like a damp shroud. The streetlights flickered erratically, casting uneven shadows on the cracked pavement, while a light rain pattered softly, turning the ground into a mosaic of shallow puddles that reflected the distant glow of factory neon signs. I, Naomi Ellis, was over 40 now, dressed in a long gray coat that concealed my frame, a wool scarf wrapped snugly around my neck, and oversized sunglasses shielding half my face, not for style, but to blend in. No one here knew I was the CEO of Ellis Global Tech, the medical technology conglomerate on the verge of a billion-dollar IPO next week. I'd just left an emergency board meeting where we'd finalized our new asthma monitoring device, a breakthrough I'd poured my soul into. Instead of calling my driver, I chose this, public transit, anonymity. I needed the silence, the reminder of who I used to be, a black nurse from the projects, fighting my own childhood asthma attacks with nothing but grit. The bench was cold and hard beneath me, and I clutched my small handbag tightly, its contents a mix of confidential IPO documents and personal items I'd carried for years. The rain whispered secrets, echoing the exhaustion in my bones. This wasn't about slumming it was about reclaiming a piece of normalcy after a day of navigating rooms full of white male investors who still looked at me like an anomaly. The last bus was due any minute, and I stared at the schedule board, willing time to slow. Then, a man in his mid-40s, white, with tired eyes and rumpled clothes, approached, cradling a sleeping girl about 5 years old on his shoulder. He glanced at me hesitantly. "Excuse me, is this seat taken? I just need a spot for her to rest her head a bit." I nodded subtly and shifted over, making room without a word. He sat down gratefully, adjusting the child gently. But the conflict arrived like an uninvited storm. A woman standing nearby, middle-aged and dressed in flashy layers, whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Watch yourself. Late like this, chatting up strange men? Doesn't look like someone respectable riding the bus. More like an unemployed nanny trying to hustle." Her words sliced through the air, sharp and accusatory. I heard every syllable, felt the familiar sting of judgment based on nothing but my skin and my silence. But I didn't react. I tightened my grip on my coat sleeve, staring at the rain-slicked road, reminding myself that I'd faced worse boardrooms where my ideas were dismissed before I finished speaking. The man beside me shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. The whispers grew, pulling in others at the stop, turning a quiet wait into a brewing tension. The woman's words hit me like a sudden gust of wind, cutting through the misty rain and lodging deep in my chest. "Watch yourself. Late like this, chatting up strange men? Doesn't look like someone respectable riding the bus. More like an unemployed nanny trying to hustle." Her voice was loud enough to carry, deliberate, as if she wanted the whole stop to hear. I felt the eyes of the scattered crowd shift toward me, curious, judgmental, the kind of stares I'd endured 1,000 times as a black woman navigating spaces where I didn't belong. In boardrooms, I'd learned to armor myself against it, but here, in this raw, unfiltered slice of Atlanta's underbelly, it stung fresh. I didn't turn my head. Didn't give her the satisfaction of a reaction. Instead, I tightened my grip on my coat sleeve, the fabric bunching under my fingers as I stared at the rain-smeared window of the shelter. My mind raced back to those early days, scrubbing hospital floors as a young nurse, overhearing doctors dismiss me as just help while I juggled night shifts and engineering classes. Now, with Ellis Global Tech on the cusp of changing lives, devices that could detect asthma attacks before they escalated, I was reduced to this, a stereotype in a stranger's mouth. The man beside me shifted uneasily, his daughter's head lolling against his shoulder. He glanced at me apologetically but stayed silent, probably afraid of escalating things for his kid's sake. The whispers didn't stop. Another voice joined in, a younger man leaning against the pole. "Yeah, look at her. Acting all mysterious with those shades at night. Probably up to no good." Laughter rippled through a small group, low and mocking. My dignity felt like it was being stripped away, layer by layer, in public view. As CEO, I could have pulled out my phone, shown them the Forbes article calling me the brain behind Southern healthcare reform, or even called my assistant to send a car. But what would that prove? That power bought respect? No, I'd built my empire on quiet resilience, not flashy retorts. Still, the insult burned. Unemployed nanny? If they only knew the billions riding on my decisions, the lives my tech had saved. I kept my breathing steady, focusing on the rain's rhythm. It reminded me of storms I'd weathered alone, losing my mother to untreated asthma, fighting investors who saw my skin before my vision. This was just another squall. But inside, a quiet rage simmered, not at them, but at a world that made such judgments automatic. I wouldn't break my silence yet. Not here. The child's cough started softly at first, a small, raspy sound that cut through the tension like a knife. It grew into a series of wheezes, her little chest heaving as she stirred on her father's shoulder. He panicked, fumbling for tissues in his pocket, wiping her face with trembling hands. "I'm sorry," he muttered to the group, his voice laced with embarrassment. "She's got asthma, but it's not contagious. I just lost my job at the factory. Didn't think it'd flare up tonight." The whispers around us paused, but the judgmental stares lingered, now mixed with pity for him and suspicion for me. The woman who'd called me a hustler smirked, as if this confirmed her narrative, me, the outsider, drawing trouble. I felt a familiar pull in my gut. Asthma. I'd lived it, breathed it, literally. As a kid in Atlanta's roughest neighborhoods, I'd clutched at my throat during attacks, my single mother scraping pennies for inhalers that never came fast enough. Now, with Ellis Global Tech, I'd dedicated years to affordable devices that could prevent exactly this. But here, I was just Naomi, the anonymous black woman on a bus bench. Without a word, I reached into my handbag, my fingers brushing past the IPO folders to find the mini asthma inhaler, a prototype from our latest line, imported and compact, designed for emergencies. "Here," I said softly, extending it to him. "Let her use this for now. I've given it to someone special before." He took it hesitantly, his eyes widening at the sleek design. "You carry this around? This isn't cheap, must be a couple $100. I met his gaze steadily. "I know the cost of a breath taken at the right moment, it's worth more than money." He nodded gratefully, administering a puff to the girl, who calmed almost immediately, her breathing easing into a steady rhythm. The group fell quieter, a few shifting uncomfortably. The smirking woman averted her eyes, but I caught her glance, defiant, then uncertain. I didn't speak again, didn't explain. Instead, I held her stare for a long moment, my expression unyielding, letting the silence say what words couldn't. Judgment cuts both ways. She looked away first, fiddling with her phone. The rain picked up, drumming harder on the shelter roof, mirroring the storm inside me, not rage, but resolve. This night was a reminder, power wasn't in confrontation, but in quiet acts that shifted the air around you. The bus was running late, as if the night conspired to prolong my ordeal. The rain had picked up, turning the shelter into a humid cage where more people gathered, huddling under the overhang like reluctant refugees from the storm. The crowd swelled, tired workers from the late shift, a few students with backpacks, and stragglers like the flashy woman who'd started the whispers. Their voices buzzed like insects, low at first, then growing bolder as the delay stretched on. I sat there, still clutching my handbag, feeling the weight of the IPO documents inside like a secret anchor. The silence I'd sought was shattered, replaced by this brewing undercurrent of judgment. The flashy woman, now standing closer with her boyfriend in tow, didn't hold back. She leaned into him, her voice carrying just enough to pierce the air. "Look at her over there, doesn't look like she's got much going on. Probably a single mom scraping by on odd jobs." Her tone dripped with condescension, as if my mere presence offended her sense of order. The boyfriend chuckled softly, glancing my way. Don't underestimate her, babe. She's got that quiet vibe, like she's not one to back down. But she waved him off, her laugh sharp. Oh please. If she was anything special, why is she slumming it on the bus this late? No car, no ride, smells like desperation to me. Their words fueled the fire, sparking murmurs from others. An older man nearby nodded, muttering to no one in particular, yeah, folks like that always got an angle. Handing out fancy inhalers like it's nothing? Probably stolen or fake. A young woman with earbuds half-in added, or she's just fishing for sympathy. Seen it before, act all helpful to warm into conversations. The father beside me shifted uncomfortably, holding his daughter closer, as if shielding her from the toxicity. I could see the guilt in his eyes, like he regretted accepting my help now that it painted a target on us both. I remained still, my fingers digging into the handbag strap, embracing the secret it held. These strangers didn't know the battles I'd fought, the all-nighters coding prototypes in my tiny apartment, the rejections from venture capitalists who saw my black face before my genius. Their scorn was fuel, not fire. It reminded me why I built Ellis Global, to rise above this noise. But as the whispers intensified, a quiet fury built inside me, not explosive, but steady, like the rain turning into a downpour. They were adding oil to the flames, unaware they were igniting something far bigger than a bus stop spat. The child's cries pierced the mounting whispers like a siren, raw and desperate. She wriggled in her father's arms, her face flushed, tiny hands clutching at his shirt. "Daddy, I'm hungry," she whimpered between sobs, her voice echoing in the confined shelter. The man rummaged through his pockets frantically, pulling out a crumpled wallet with only a few coins spilling out. He sighed heavily, defeat etching deeper lines on his face. "No. I meant to buy some milk earlier, but the stores are closed now." His shoulders slumped, the weight of unemployment and fatherhood pressing down visibly. The crowd's murmurs shifted slightly, some pitying him, others glancing at me as if this was somehow my fault for drawing attention. I watched for a moment, my heart twisting in recognition. Hunger like that, I'd known it intimately, growing up in Atlanta's forgotten corners, where meals were luxuries and my mother's asthma meds came before food. As CEO of Ellis Global Tech, I'd channeled that pain into innovations, nutrient-dense bars for at-risk kids, laced with allergens-free proteins from our labs. But here, I was just Naomi, the silent black woman under scrutiny. Softly, I leaned toward him. "Do you have any milk on you?" My voice was gentle, not probing, just enough to offer an opening without imposing. He shook his head, eyes downcast. Without fanfare, I unzipped my handbag, bypassing the confidential files to retrieve an organic protein bar, hypoallergenic, designed for lactose-intolerant children, a sample from our pediatric line. "This is safe," I said quietly, handing it over. "I carry them for the kids I've looked after before." He accepted it with wide eyes, breaking off a piece for his daughter, who nibbled tentatively, her cries fading into contented munching. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Really, I don't know what to say." The older woman nearby, who'd been observing silently, murmured to herself, loud enough for others to hear, "The kind of person who carries asthma meds and kid snacks, knows the right doses, can't be ordinary." Her words hung in the air, a subtle counter to the earlier venom. The flashy woman and her boyfriend exchanged glances, their mockery faltering for the first time. I didn't elaborate, didn't boast about the bar's origins and my company's R&D. Instead, I sat back, letting the act speak. Inside, a quiet satisfaction bloomed, not victory, but validation. These small gestures were my rebellion against the world's dismissals, reminders that true power lay in unseen kindnesses, not in retaliating against ignorance. The rain drummed on, but the tension in the shelter had cracked, just a little. The bus finally rumbled into view, its headlights cutting through the rain like weary beacons, tires splashing through puddles as it pulled up to the curb. The crowd stirred, a collective sigh of relief escaping as people lined up to board. I stood slowly, adjusting my scarf and handbag, the weight of the evening's judgment still pressing on me. The father nodded one last thanks, his daughter now quietly munching on the bar, her earlier distress forgotten. As we shuffled forward, the whispers trailed us like shadows, the flashy woman's voice lingering in snide asides to her boyfriend. See? All that helpful act, and now she's boarding like the rest of us. Fake it till you make it, I guess. I was last in line, letting others go ahead. When my turn came, I pulled out my card, a sleek, unassuming piece of plastic embedded with tech far beyond a standard transit pass. It was my executive priority card, linked to federal security protocols for high-profile figures in medical tech, granting discreet access in public systems. I swiped it through the reader. Instead of the usual dull beep, it emitted a sharp, distinctive chime, clear and authoritative, like a VIP alert in a crowded airport. The driver, a burly man in his 50s with a salt and pepper beard, glanced at the console, then at me, his eyebrows knitting in surprise. The sound had cut through the onboard chatter, drawing a few curious looks from passengers already seated. "Ma'am," he said quietly, leaning forward as I stepped aboard. His eyes flicked to the screen, where a subtle verification popped up, codes I knew indicated encrypted clearance, the kind reserved for executives with government ties. I shook my head subtly. Just a passenger tonight. But he wasn't letting it go easily. As I moved to find a seat near the back, I caught him tapping at his dashboard, cross-referencing the card's ID in the system's back end. His face shifted from confusion to recognition, a widening of the eyes, a subtle nod to himself. I'd seen that look before, in airports, at events, when my identity pierced the veil of anonymity. The card wasn't just for buses, it was a safeguard, tied to my role at Ellis Global, ensuring priority in emergencies or travel disruptions. He knew now, this wasn't an ordinary rider. Whispers rippled anew. What was that sound? Sounded fancy. The older woman from earlier murmured, "Told you, not ordinary." I sat down, staring out the rain-streaked window, the bus lurching forward. That small law detail, the chime, had planted a seed of doubt in their assumptions. Inside, I felt a quiet shift, not triumph, but the subtle power of unseen truths waiting to unfold. The night was far from over. On the bus, the air was thick with the scent of damp clothes and stale exhaust, the engines hum a constant undercurrent to the simmering unease. Rain streaked the windows, blurring the city lights into hazy streaks as we jolted along Atlanta's uneven streets. I sat toward the back, my handbag on my lap like a shield, the father's grateful nod still fresh in my mind. His daughter, now content with the protein bar, dozed against him. But peace was fleeting. The flashy woman from the stop, seated a few rows ahead with her boyfriend, couldn't resist escalating. Her voice rose above the rumble, pointed and performative. "Time like this, everyone wants to play the hero for attention. Handing out snacks and meds to strangers? Think she's some saint?" Laughter trickled from a couple of passengers nearby, emboldening her. She turned slightly, her eyes locking on me with mock pity. "Bet she's got a whole routine, act all generous to weasel into folks' lives. Seen it on social media. Fake kindness for likes." The boyfriend tried to hush her, but she waved him off. Come on, if she was legit, why bus it? Probably scamming for sympathy. The words landed like punches, each one twisting the knife of dismissal deeper. As a black CEO in a white-dominated tech world, I'd faced boardroom barbs veiled as concerns, but this raw, public dissection felt primal, reducing me to a caricature, ignoring the empire I'd built from nothing. The father shifted uncomfortably, his face reddening. He opened his mouth to defend, but hesitated, glancing at his sleeping child. I could see the conflict in his eyes, gratitude clashing with the fear of drawing more fire. The murmur spread, a man in front muttered, "Yeah, suspicious. Who carries that stuff unless they're up to something?" Tension peaked, the bus feeling smaller, the stairs heavier. My pulse quickened, not from fear, but from the familiar fire of injustice. I'd clawed my way from poverty, innovating asthma tech that saved lives like that girl's, yet here I was, vilified for a simple act. I leaned forward slightly, my voice calm but firm, addressing her indirectly through the space between seats. If helping someone means I've lived through days when no one helped me, it's not for greatness. Just to make one day kinder. She faltered, her smirk wavering, but snapped back, "Who asked you? Mind your own business." The bus lurched at a stoplight, amplifying the standoff. Inside, I burned, not with rage to lash out, but with the quiet certainty that truths like mine didn't need volume to shatter illusions. The negativity intensified, but so did the cracks in their facade. The driver's voice broke through the charged silence like a crack in a dam, low but authoritative from the front of the bus. "Settle down back there, miss," he said, glancing in the rearview mirror at the flashy woman. I know that card she swiped. Only a handful in the state have one like it, and none of them waste time arguing to prove a point. His words hung heavy, the engine's growl underscoring the shift. The flashy woman blinked, her smirk fading into confusion, while her boyfriend tugged at her sleeve, whispering something I couldn't hear. The bus swayed around a corner, but the onboard tension held steady, eyes darting between me and the driver. I sat motionless, my handbag still clutched tightly, feeling the subtle ripple of doubt spread. The older woman from the stop, seated across the aisle, leaned forward, her voice a murmur that carried, "Hold on. I've seen her before. On the news, about that big donation to the city hospital last year? She was the one pushing for free asthma clinics in the South Side." She pulled out her phone, fingers tapping quickly, and I knew what was coming, the digital unraveling of my anonymity. A young man nearby overheard, his curiosity piqued. He too grabbed his device, muttering, "Naomi Ellis? Wait, the founder of Ellis Global Tech? Yeah, here it is." Forbes called her the brain rebuilding Southern healthcare. The bus fell into a hush, the rain's patter on the roof the only sound for a beat. Whispers evolved into gasps, "No way, she's that CEO? The black woman who turned down a White House invite to focus on community tech?" Phones lit up like fireflies, screens glowing with articles, photos from galas, headlines about my journey from nurse to innovator. The father beside me straightened, his daughter stirring slightly. He glanced at me with newfound awe, mouthing a silent "thank you again." Even the man who'd muttered suspicions earlier lowered his device, his face flushing. Inside, I felt a complex swirl, not vindication, but a weary acknowledgement. I'd built Ellis Global to bridge gaps, not to flaunt status, yet here it was, my identity piercing their biases like a scalpel. The flashy woman shifted in her seat, her earlier bravado crumbling. She avoided my gaze, fiddling with her nails. The driver caught my eye in the mirror, nodding subtly, as if to say he'd known all along. The air thickened with unspoken regrets, the bus's fluorescent lights casting long shadows over faces now etched with uncertainty. They were doubting their judgments, piecing together the puzzle I'd never intended to reveal. But secrets have a way of surfacing, especially when kindness clashes with cruelty. The night pressed on, the city blurring past, and I wondered how many more masks I'd have to shed before the world saw me without prompting. The flashy woman's confidence cracked visibly, her face paling under the bus's harsh fluorescent glow as the whispers turned against her. She twisted in her seat, eyes narrowing on me, the earlier mockery replaced by a mix of defensiveness and curiosity. "Who are you, anyway?" she demanded, her voice sharper than intended, echoing through the now hushed cabin. "Why's everyone staring at you like you're some big deal?" Her boyfriend pulled at her arm, murmuring warnings, but she shook him off, the challenge hanging in the air like smoke. I paused, feeling the weight of every eye on me, the driver glancing back through the mirror, the older woman nodding knowingly, phone still aglow with search results. This was the tipping point, the moment where silence could no longer hold. But I didn't raise my voice, didn't unleash the torrent of achievements I could have recited, The billions in valuations, the lives saved by my tech, the barriers shattered as a black woman in Silicon Valley's shadow. Instead, I met her gaze steadily, my words measured and low, cutting through the tension like a scalpel. If you need a name to start respecting someone, then the problem isn't with them. The sentence landed like a thunderclap in the confined space. She recoiled, her mouth opening and closing without sound, the bravado evaporating. Murmurs rippled anew, but this time in agreement. "Damn, she's got a point," someone whispered. The older woman chuckled softly. "Preach." The father, holding his daughter close, looked at me with quiet admiration. His little girl, now wide awake, tugged at his sleeve and pointed at me with innocent wonder. "Daddy, she's like Mommy. Mommy used to help people too." He smiled faintly, tears glistening in his eyes, and nodded at me. "You remind her of better days." The bus's atmosphere transformed in that instant, from hostility to introspection. The flashy woman sank into her seat, avoiding glances, her boyfriend patting her shoulder awkwardly. Phones dimmed as people pocketed them, the glow of revelations fading into thoughtful silence. Even the skeptics from earlier, the man who'd called my kindness suspicious, averted their eyes, perhaps replaying their words. The driver cleared his throat over the intercom. "Folks, let's keep it civil. We've all got stories." But I knew the shift was deeper. My single sentence had reframed the narrative, exposing the fragility of their biases. It wasn't about revealing my identity, not yet. It was about forcing a mirror on their assumptions, making them question why respect required a title. Inside, a quiet triumph stirred. I'd built Ellis Global not for acclaim, but for moments like this, dismantling prejudice with poise, one breath at a time. The rain outside intensified, mirroring the storm's resolution, as the bus pressed on toward the city center. The peak of tension had crested, leaving behind a charged calm, ripe for the revelations to come. The bus jolted to a stop at the Central Transfer Hub in downtown Atlanta, the doors hissing open to let in a rush of cooler night air mingled with the city's distant hum. Passengers shifted, some gathering their belongings to disembark, others settling in for the longer haul. The tension from my words still lingered, a palpable hush blanketing the cabin, the flashy woman's challenge unmet, her silence a reluctant admission. I remained seated, gazing out at the platform lights, my mind already drifting toward the tech event I was meant to attend, the one where I'd accept an award for social impact. Anonymity had been my brief escape, but reality was closing in. A man boarded then, mid-30s, sharp in a tailored vest, a lanyard dangling from his neck with a badge from the National Tech Summit. He scanned the bus quickly, his eyes landing on me almost immediately. "Ms. Ellis?" His voice cut through the quiet, professional yet urgent, drawing every head in my direction. The flashy woman whipped around, her boyfriend's hand freezing mid-gesture. The older woman gasped softly, phone still in hand. Even the driver perked up, his earlier nod now a knowing smile. I met the man's gaze, recognizing him as one of my junior assistants, Alex, sharp, loyal, the kind who'd track my phone if I went off-grid. He approached swiftly, weaving past seats with apologies. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, ma'am," he said, lowering his voice but not enough to escape the eavesdroppers. "The boardroom at the summit is still holding. The organizers are floored that you chose to go solo tonight, but they're quoting you. If Naomi Ellis isn't above the bus, no one in this industry gets to perch on arrogance." He extended a hand, ready to escort me off. The cabin froze, a collective intake of breath. Whispers erupted. "Naomi Ellis? The CEO?" The flashy woman's face drained of color, her earlier bravado crumbling into wide-eyed shock. Her boyfriend muttered, "Oh God, babe." The father clutched his daughter tighter, his expression shifting from gratitude to awe. "You're her," he breathed. The older woman beamed, "I knew it." Phones lit up again, frantic searches confirming what Alex had revealed. The driver chuckled over the intercom, "Told you folks, that card doesn't lie." Inside, I felt a quiet surge, not revenge, but restoration. I'd built Ellis Global from scraps, turning personal pain into global solutions, yet moments like this reminded me why humility mattered. I stood, smoothing my coat, and nodded to Alex. "Lead the way." As we moved toward the exit, the bus's atmosphere had inverted, judgment flipped to reverence, the night's cruelty yielding to unintended justice. The revelation hit like a wave crashing over the bus, Alex's words echoing in the confined space and freezing everyone in place. The flashy woman spun fully in her seat, her face draining of color as recognition dawned. "Naomi Ellis," she stammered, her voice a mix of disbelief and horror. "The founder of Ellis Global Tech? The one Forbes dubbed the brain-rebuilding Southern healthcare?" Her boyfriend's hand clamped over his mouth, eyes wide as he stared at me, the pieces falling into place. A murmur swept through the cabin like wildfire. The young man who'd been skeptical earlier fumbled with his phone, his fingers flying across the screen. He inhaled sharply, holding up the device as if it burned him. "She's really one of the most powerful black CEOs in the country." Heads craned, phones illuminated faces in blue glows, searches pulling up headlines, my TED Talks on equitable tech, the multi-million-dollar grants to urban hospitals, photos from galas where I'd stood shoulder to shoulder with industry titans. The older woman nodded triumphantly. "I told you all, she's no ordinary soul." The father, his daughter peering curiously, whispered, "You're the one who funded those free clinics." "My wife, she got help there last year." I felt the shift viscerally, the air thickening with a cocktail of awe, regret, and unspoken apologies. Whispers turned to gasps, billions in valuation, turned down Silicon Valley offers to stay in Atlanta. The driver slowed the bus slightly, glancing back with a grin, knew that card meant something big. Inside, a complex emotion stirred, not gloating, but a profound sense of reclamation. I'd poured my life into Ellis Global, transforming my mother's fatal asthma battle into innovations that democratized healthcare. From coding in dingy apartments to leading a team that saved thousands, I'd earned every accolade. Yet here, reduced to a hustler moments ago, my truth now dismantled their illusions. I didn't confirm verbally. Words weren't needed. Instead, I rose slowly, the bus's sway steadying me as I unwrapped my scarf with deliberate calm. The fabric fell away, revealing the small, silver-edged badge pinned to my coat, a shield emblazoned with the Ellis Global logo, symbolizing protection through technology. It caught the light, gleaming subtly, a quiet emblem of my empire. The flashy woman's eyes locked on it, her hand flying to her mouth as the full weight hit. "Oh my God," she breathed, shrinking back. Her boyfriend averted his gaze, mumbling excuses. The cabin fell silent, save for the rain's insistent tap. In that moment, my identity wasn't just revealed, it was etched into their memories, a testament to resilience forged in shadows. I nodded to Alex, ready to step off, leaving behind a bus forever changed. As I prepared to step off the bus with Alex at my side, the cabin's stunned silence shattered into a mosaic of reactions. The flashy woman, her face now a mask of mortification, slumped deeper into her seat, her earlier venom replaced by a trembling whisper, I didn't know." "Oh God, I'm so sorry." Her boyfriend avoided my eyes, murmuring apologies under his breath, his hand on her shoulder as if steadying a crumbling facade. She fidgeted with her phone, perhaps deleting hasty assumptions or scrolling through the very articles that now exposed her folly. The skeptics from before, the young man, the mutterer, sat rigid, their judgments boomeranging back as regret. One even managed a choked, "Ma'am, we had no idea." But their collapse wasn't triumphant for me, it was a quiet, inevitable unraveling, a mirror to the biases I'd dismantled in boardrooms and labs alike. The father rose then, cradling his daughter gently as he approached. She clung to him, wide-eyed, the remnants of the protein bar still on her lips. He bowed his head slightly, his voice thick with emotion, "Thank you for everything, for the inhaler, the bar, for just being kind." And I'm sorry if this night got messed up because of us. His eyes met mine, raw with gratitude and perhaps a touch of awe, seeing not just a stranger now, but the architect of clinics that might have saved his family before. I shook my head softly, my voice steady amid the bus's lingering hum. I didn't come here to be bowed to. I came to remember that the most important things never happen in boardrooms. It was true, Ellis Global wasn't born in glossy offices, but in the grit of nights like this, where a single breath, a single act, could pivot a life. He nodded, tears glistening, and stepped back, his daughter waving shyly as if I'd become a storybook hero in her eyes. With Alex leading, I descended the steps, the rain-slicked platform welcoming me back to my world. But before the doors closed, I turned, facing the sea of silent faces peering out, regretful, reflective, forever altered. A kind word costs nothing, I said clearly, my gaze sweeping over them, lingering on the flashy woman one last time. But it can change someone forever. The doors hissed shut, the bus pulling away into the night, carrying my message with it. Outside, Alex opened an umbrella, his efficiency a stark contrast to the chaos I'd left. The summit's waiting, Ms. Ellis. Car's here. I nodded, stepping into the vehicle, the weight of the evening lifting like fog. Not revenge, but restoration, proof that identities like mine didn't need fanfare to command respect. The city lights blurred past, and I felt grounded, ready for the applause that awaited, knowing it paled against the quiet victories of the overlooked. I stepped out of the car into the grand lobby of the Georgia World Congress Center, the venue for the National Tech Summit humming with energy under crystal chandeliers. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but my coat still carried the damp scent of the bus stop, a reminder of the night's raw edges. Alex walked beside me, his tablet glowing with updates. The ceremony starts in 5. They're holding for you. I nodded, shedding my anonymity like an old skin as we entered the main hall. Heads turned, executives in tailored suits, investors with champagne flutes, a sea of mostly white, male faces that parted subtly as recognition spread. The MC spotted me from the stage wings, his voice booming over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our honoree for the 2026 Social Impact Award, Naomi Ellis, CEO of Ellis Global Tech. Applause erupted, a thunderous wave that drowned out the lingering echoes of bus whispers. I ascended the steps, the spotlight warm on my skin, illuminating the silver badge on my coat, the same one that had silenced the skeptics moments ago. Rows of chairs filled with industry titans stood, clapping vigorously. Among them, I spotted familiar faces, the venture capitalist who'd once dismissed my pitch as too niche for a black-led startup, now grinning broadly, the rival CEO who'd spread rumors about my affirmative action success, his ovation forced but fervent. I accepted the crystal trophy, its weight solid in my hands, engraved with words about innovation and equity. Thank you, I said into the microphone, my voice steady despite the adrenaline. This isn't just for me, it's for every overlooked breath, every dismissed dream. At Ellis Global, we build tech that bridges divides, because I've lived those gaps. The crowd roared louder, flashes from cameras capturing the moment. But in my mind, I was still on that bus bench, handing an inhaler to a child, facing down judgments that mirrored the ones I'd shattered here. Stepping away from the humiliation of the stop felt like emerging from a cocoon, not victorious over strangers, but reaffirmed in my path. The applause faded as I descended, handshakes and congratulations swirling around me. Yet, the real triumph was internal. I'd left the insults behind, carrying forward the quiet power of resilience. The night had tested me, but I'd walked out unbroken, ready to lead. The summit wrapped late, but the night's echoes followed me home to my quiet loft in Midtown Atlanta. I shed my coat, the silver badge glinting under the soft lights, and poured a glass of herbal tea, chamomile, to ease the lingering adrenaline. My phone buzzed incessantly, congratulatory texts from board members, media requests for interviews about the award. But one notification stood out, a link from Alex, flagged as viral thread on Startup Forum. I clicked through, the screen filling with an anonymous post on a major startup discussion board, already shared thousands of times. The title, "Saw Naomi Ellis on a bus tonight, changed how I see success." The writer described it vividly. "Last night, I was on the late Route 17 out of the industrial district. Spotted a black woman in a plain coat, sitting quietly. She helped a dad with his asthmatic kid, handed over an inhaler like it was nothing, then a protein bar when the girl got hungry. No fuss, no show." Turns out, it was Naomi Ellis, the CEO behind Ellis Global Tech. The one revolutionizing medtech for underserved communities. She didn't name drop, didn't flash her status. Just acted human. And when some loudmouth tried to drag her, she shut it down with one line: "If you need a name to respect someone, the problem's not them." Boom. Mic drop. I've chased funding rounds and valuations my whole career, thinking success meant private jets and corner offices. But watching her, riding public transit after a billion-dollar day, sharing her last snack with a stranger's kid, hit different. Class isn't where you end up, it's how you behave anywhere. Ellis didn't need aids or symbols. She embodied it. If more founders lived like that, our industry's toxicity might fade. Respect. Comments flooded in, entrepreneurs debating humility in leadership, others sharing similar underdog stories. One venture capitalist I'd pitched years ago even chimed in, "Met her early on, same vibe. Underestimated her once, won't again." Reading it, a warmth spread through me, not pride, but affirmation. That bus ride, meant for solitude, had rippled outward, turning judgment into a lesson. In my world of high-stakes deals, this anonymous nod felt more real than any trophy. I set the phone down, sipping my tea, knowing tomorrow's board meeting would wait. Tonight, I savored the quiet impact of being seen, not as CEO, but as Naomi. At the break of dawn the next morning, I stood at my loft's floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking Atlanta's skyline awakening under a soft pink hue. The city pulsed below, taxis honking, early commuters weaving through streets, factories humming back to life in the distance. My phone lay silent now, the summit's buzz faded, but one final message from Alex popped up, a photo attachment. "Thought you'd want to see this, Ms. Ellis. Spotted on Route 17 this AM." I opened it, and there it was, a simple electronic board at the bus stop where it all began, the one with flickering lights and rain-slicked benches. The driver, that perceptive man with the salt and pepper beard, had reprogrammed the display. Instead of the usual route schedule, it read in bold, scrolling letters, "Route 17, a Knight's Legacy." Naomi Ellis once sat in seat 3, sharing medicine and silence. Below, a small note, "Kindness rides free here." The image hit me like a gentle wave, not overwhelming, but profound. No grand monument, no viral video, just a quiet tribute from a stranger who'd witnessed the truth unfold. I imagined passengers pausing, reading it, perhaps searching my name and discovering the layers, the black girl from the projects who turned pain into patents, asthma into algorithms. The flashy woman might pass by one day, her steps faltering. The father could point it out to his daughter, "That's the lady who helped you breathe easier." I didn't need the acclaim. No parades or profiles could match the raw satisfaction of that sign, a beacon in the overlooked corners where real change sparks. One small act, I whispered to the empty room, echoing my bus words, "can echo forever." It was my mantra, forged in nights like that, build empires from empathy, not ego. Sipping my coffee, I turned back to my desk, opening the IPO files. The work continued, refining devices that detected crises before they struck, funding clinics in forgotten zip codes. Not for glory, but because I'd been the hungry child, the dismissed woman. That sign wasn't about me, it was a reminder for them all. Greatness starts in the seats we share, the silences we honor. As the sun rose higher, I felt rooted, my journey's echoes carrying on without fanfare.